posted about this, a thread, literally, I think yesterday, saying this is, and I'll probably butcher the quote now, but I said something like, don't work so hard trying to achieve some life that you think you want, that you end up neglecting and missing out on the life that you're currently living.
Welcome to Shaping Freedom with Lisan Basquiat, the podcast where we help you unlock your potential and redefine what it means to be free. I'm your host, Lisan Basquiat. I'm a former corporate executive, a life strategist, and the founder of Shaping Freedom. With a background spanning corporate, artistic, and personal development, I bring a unique perspective to empowering others. Listen in to discover inspiring stories and practical insights that will help you reclaim your life and rewrite your narrative. My intention is for you to gain the tools and motivation to be free in your relationships, your communities, and within yourself. This, my friends, is Shaping Freedom.
So since the pandemic, I've been following this person on Instagram. What I really appreciate about this creator is the processes that he has around his Instagram channel. He is an Instagram coach, and he makes the process of creating seem so fun and so easy. And we need so much more of that in our lives. This person's name is Brock Johnson. So we reached out to him about a year and a half ago to ask him if he'd be on the podcast. And he responded with, I can't do it right now, but here are 3 other creators that I think you should connect with, or 3 other Instagram coaches that I think you should connect with. And that just made me want to have him on the podcast even more, because I loved his sense of community. I love the way he has his business set up and really is more of an entrepreneur who focuses on marketing than he is a social media person. So I'm so excited to present my conversation with Brock Johnson. There's a couple of things you really want to pay attention to. One is how he's able to craft his business life in a way that puts very clear boundaries around both his personal life and also his relationship with his family, who he also works with. There are so many nuggets in this one. And so I encourage you to grab whatever it is that you choose to write with, take some notes. This is a conversation you're really going to not only want to hear, but also want to share with others. Here's my conversation with Brock Johnson. Welcome to the Shaping Freedom with Lisan Basquiat podcast. I'm Lisan Basquiat, your host, and I am super excited about the guest that I am going to embark on a discussion with in a couple of moments. I don't often turn into a fangirl about people, but this person, I've been following him for quite some time, and I've been wanting to have this conversation with you for a really, really long time. Brock, thank you so much for coming.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, Lisan. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm very humbled, and it's kind of crazy to me when I hear someone say a fangirl. Like, that doesn't connect or sound even like a real thing to me. So I'm just really excited that we get to have this conversation today, and I hope the listeners can find it helpful and valuable in some way.
Yeah, I know that they will. And by fangirl, what I mean is you make this new thing that we're all doing, this new world that so many people are playing in, you make it a fun place to be, a fun, informative, educational, and safe place to be. And I'm a fangirl for that.
Well, thank you. That really does mean a lot. That's one of my big goals. And I love that, like, fun is the first adjective that came out of your mouth, because that's one of my big things is like, I want to make it easy and simple. I want to be straightforward, but I also want to have fun while doing it, because if we're not going to have fun with it, we might as well be done with it. So I really do appreciate that.
So I was trying to think of, like, where do I start with this conversation? And I think it'd be helpful to know how you got into being what do you refer to yourself as?
It really depends on who I'm talking to. Like, if I'm speaking to my neighbor who is like in their 60s and they're not on social media, I'll just say like, I'm in marketing. But if I'm speaking to someone who's like listening to this podcast, I kind of say like Instagram growth coach. I teach people how to grow and monetize on Instagram specifically, but also on all other social networks as well. So that's kind of like the quick elevator pitch of what I do.
Yeah. And so how did you get into this?
Yeah, so it happened very much organically. I think I would be remiss to not talk about how I was brought up. I was raised in a very entrepreneurial family. A lot of people know my mom, Shalene Johnson. I was raised, of course, by her and my dad. My dad's the CFO and has always been of all of the companies they've run. And my mom is the CEO, the front facing face of the brand. And so growing up, my sister and I both got to just watch our parents be entrepreneurs and start to experiment with social media. And my mom had a podcast back before it was even podcasting. She used to just record her voice and burn it onto CDs and then mail out hundreds of CDs on a monthly basis
I
for
remember
people to
those
listen to
days.
in their car. So that's the environment that I was raised in. And so from a very young age, I wasn't like being sat down at the dinner table and told I have to be an entrepreneur and here are the KPIs of a successful business. I was just getting to watch my parents and I learned a lot through monkey see, monkey do. And then fast forward to my freshman year of college, I was a student athlete. And so as a student athlete, it was very tough to make a living. I didn't have the time to work like a traditional job. And when I was a student athlete, it was before the days of the NIL, the name, image, likeness, where now, people are getting paid like millions of dollars to transfer from this school to that school. When I was in college, it was the exact opposite. The NCAA was like, hey, if you're making even a penny, we need to know about it and we need to make sure it's legit.
Oh, wow.
So I knew that if I wanted to make an income for myself and financially separate from my parents while I was in college, the only way I was going to be able to do that was through entrepreneurship and starting my own business. And so at that time, I was 18 or 19 years old, and I realized that two things. Number one, there was a gap in the market. And number two, I had a unique skill set to fill that gap. The gap that I found was that all over the news, and this was back in like 2015, 2016, all over the news was Snapchat. And people were scared of Snapchat, especially parents were so scared of like, what are my kids doing on Snapchat? There's disappearing messages. There's these things that are just like momentary 24-hour notices. What's going on? So there was that gap in the market and there was a lot of buzz around Snapchat. The unique skill set that I had was that not only was I basically a child who had just been raised and learned how to use Snapchat, I also knew how to teach people who were my parents' age how to use it themselves. And that skill set was developed because, again, I was a freshman in college. And so I was like, Mom and Dad, I don't want to text you every day. I'm just going to send you snaps. I'm going to like take little videos and send you Snapchats throughout my day. So I had to teach them how to use it. So I basically developed that skill set of teaching someone who was double my age how to use Snapchat. And I was like, well, I could monetize this. I could create an online course where I just taught other parents how to use Snapchat, kind of showed them like what their kids are probably doing and how to keep their kids safe on Snapchat. So that was my first real business. That was when I was 19. And then that organically turned into Instagram through the following steps. Keeping your kids safe on Snapchat became Snapchat for business because very quickly I learned that, yeah, a lot of people wanted to keep their kids safe, but now all these people knew how to use Snapchat and they had their own businesses that they wanted to grow on Snapchat. And so I was like, I'll teach you how to do that because I just did it myself. And then a few months after that happened, there was this like mass exodus from Snapchat led by Kylie Jenner. Everyone was like, we're going back to Instagram. Instagram stories was this new hot thing. Everyone was piecing out to Snapchat. And so I followed the market and I went from Snapchat marketing to Instagram stories marketing. And that's basically what I've been doing for the last 7 or 8 years is teaching people how to market and grow on Instagram.
And you do it very well. I think one of the things that I admire most and one of the reasons why I personally and professionally follow you is because you make it very easy. You make it, you give very small snippets of information that are very easily and practically applied. And I think that that's what a lot of folks, that's what we need, is how do you make this thing easy? We talked in the beginning about kind of the world of social media. And I mentioned one of the reasons that I love following you is because it's fun, even though it's educational. It's fun and educational. Let me say that. How do you, in a sea of knowing that you're playing within a sea of craziness a lot of the time, how do you keep yourself kind of focused on your own growth and the message that you're looking to express?
Yeah, well, thank you for the compliments. I would say that there's a lot of noise on social media, and especially if you follow everyone in my profession, all of the other Instagram growth coaches, including myself, if you follow us, and especially if you follow more than one, there's so many different things that you could be doing, so many different tips and recommendations. And admittedly, part of that for us as coaches is we're putting out these little tips, we're putting out these little recommendations because it's a great way to provide value. And it's a great thing for our own engagement. It's a great way for us to get more eyeballs and grow our following. But the average person probably follows more than one Instagram coach. So now all of a sudden you're getting told to do this and you're getting told to do that and try this and try this and do this tip. And so it can feel very overwhelming when really growing on Instagram and truly growing on all social networks comes down to just 3 steps. There's really just step 1, step 2, step 3. And if you can do those 3 things, you'll grow on pretty much any platform. And that makes up, I would say, 90 to 95% of the actual growth. It's going to come from those 3 steps. Everything else is just fluff. It's just icing on the cake. It's just, little things that might make a little difference here or there. And so for myself, it's just constantly reminding my audience as well as myself that there are just these 3 things. And if I can keep going back to these 3 steps, people will have success and they will grow. And if that message eventually sinks in, then they will achieve their results they want. And then, of course, I'll sprinkle in the other, 5 to 10% of fluff and tips and quick little recommendations, because for some people, those quick wins do kind of provide them with the motivation to keep going.
Do you know that we have a line of Shaping Freedom wellness products? Each are beautifully crafted and designed to support you in cherishing your mind, body, emotions, and soul. Carve out a sanctuary in your life with our Luxe sustainable yoga and meditation mats, essential oil candles, and more. Embrace self-care and reflection with every item, lovingly created to enhance your daily practice of spending time on you. Elevate your wellness journey with Shaping Sanctuary Collection, because you deserve to feel balanced, nurtured, and inspired. Visit shapingsanctuary.com for more information.
So, what are the 3 tips?
Yeah. In short, step number 1 is identify your niche. I don't care if you're on YouTube, if you've got a podcast, if you're on TikTok or Instagram, whatever. Step number 1 is to really identify the who and the what. So the demographics that you're trying to attract. For some people, it might matter the age. For some people, it might matter the gender of their followers. For some people, it might matter the geographic location of their followers. So really getting clear on the who and then the what. And the what is kind of what most people think of, is like, what am I going to talk to them about? On my Instagram, I'm talking to them about growing on Instagram. But there are so many different, more niche topics that you could even get into. And I'm a firm believer that the riches are in the niches, and the more you niche down, the faster you'll grow, the better customer base you'll have, the more engaged followers you'll have. So that's really step 1. Step 2 is just optimizing the profile. And I think we overthink things when we get onto like social media and we start thinking about the algorithms. But if I was to tell you, hey, you have to set up this boutique, this storefront, and you have a month to do it, I think most people would be like, okay, first I need to figure out, what am I selling? Like, what is this store going to be?
Yeah.
That's your niche. And the second thing you're going to do is you're going to get the store set up right. Like, you're going to make sure that there's a sign or a logo above the store. You're going to make sure that the window dressing looks nice. You're going to make sure that, the floors are swept and just everything looks good on the inside. And so translate that to social media. Step 2 for growth is just optimizing your profile. Make sure that your profile, your bio, all of that stuff is set up to convert someone from just a casual viewer or someone randomly stumbling across your profile into someone who's actually going to become a follower and a potential customer. That's step two. And then step three is where it gets down to the more unique strategies that might be slightly different from each social media to each other, but it's posting. Posting is step three. And of course, like I said, there's going to be slightly different techniques and best practices for each platform. But if I was to give like one overarching best strategy that seems to be effective on pretty much every platform, it's posting shareable content, or sometimes I call it share-worthy content. It's the kind of post that when you see it, you're sending it to a friend, you're sending it to your spouse, you're sending it to your BFF, you're sending it to your colleague. That sort of share-worthy content is the best way to grow. And it's also a long-term strategy because while the algorithms on every platform are always changing, a share, one human being sharing a post with another human being, doesn't rely on the algorithm. It doesn't matter what the algorithm is favoring those days, is directly basically doubling the views. One person sharing it to a second. And so share-worthy content is really the secret sauce on pretty much all social, but especially on Instagram.
Yeah. And that's about community. And at the end of the day, community is for everyone. It doesn't matter whether it's social media or in real life. So I think one of the other things is that there are so many people who want to become creators or who are choosing this as a career. And what I appreciate about you is you and some others like you is the fact that you recognize this really is an entrepreneurial endeavor. This is the thing that you're doing while you're also, technically marketing. You've built a business out of this. And I think that there are many people who could really use some understanding about like, okay, it's not just taking a selfie. It's not just showing people, how, what you ate this morning. There has to be some semblance of strategy and a focus on having a return on the investment of your time and energy. What do you say to people who kind of shy away from it, or who really want to make some money doing this thing, but are not clear on how to do that?
Yeah, well, I first and foremost see myself as an entrepreneur, not a creator. And I recently had a post that went viral, so I know a lot of people will relate to this. And the post was basically saying that all of us business owners and entrepreneurs are now being forced to become content creators. And forced might be an aggressive word, but it's a feeling that I think so many of us feel to be true. And, at the end of the day, social media is a free tool. It's at least most social media, X is now starting to charge subscriptions and Meta has their own subscriptions. But for the most part, it's still a free tool. And it's a free tool that can allow us to reach hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people just by clicking a few buttons on our phone. That's free marketing. That's free advertising. I love when I'm driving on the highway and I see a billboard and it's like, you could reach 1 million people with this billboard. Call this number. Well, that billboard's going to cost you thousands of dollars a month. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars a month to show up on social media. But like you said, there's definitely a strategy to everything. I think the days of, hey, here's what I had for breakfast. Hey, here's my workout today. And just kind of showing people your daily life or quote unquote documenting your journey. I don't want to say they're dead and gone, but I think that we're following people now more than ever for a specific reason because we can get something in return. Like we can learn something, or there's some funny content that we appreciate and we want to see more of, or there's some specific topic they're talking about that we want to learn more about. We don't necessarily follow someone just to see what it's like to be a mom of 3 anymore, because every mom of 3 is on social media nowadays
and knows what it's like to be a mom of 3. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like my grandma and my grandpa are both in their late 70s and they're posting on Instagram all the time. And so, 20 years ago, that would have been like mind blowing. Let's follow these grandparents to see their journey. But now it's like a lot of grandparents are on social media. A lot of people in their 70s and even 80s are on social media. And so the days of just kind of following along on someone's journey are a lot less impactful. They're a lot less follow worthy today than they were, 15, 20 years ago. So to kind of bring this full circle and back to the conversation of being an entrepreneur, today on the day that we're recording this podcast, I'm filming kind of like a little day in the life video for myself, taking little snippets of my day, not to show people what I had for breakfast, not to show people how I make my coffee, but instead to show people, hey, here's what my life is like. Here's the life I'm able to live and what my daily routine looks like as an entrepreneur, as someone who has found success on Instagram, as someone who has done X, Y, and Z. And so it is kind of to portray something to aspire to, if you will. And so the marketing side of that is people are like, oh, hey, I want to create that life for myself. I want that time freedom. I want X, Y, and Z that they're seeing in my daily routine. And then if they do want that and they do want tips and strategies and recommendations to live a life like I'm living, well, then that's what I'm there for, right? That's what I provide. That's what I sell. That's what I'm marketing and teaching. And so even in the documenting of my journey, there's a marketing angle to it.
Yeah. And it's share worthy. So I think that one of the things that I focus on and really, really care about, well, two things. One is entrepreneurs. It's a rough business. It takes strategy. It's not, I think there's this idea that if you take one selfie or if you sell one, pen, that within 3 months, you're going to be just rolling in it and, eating bonbons somewhere. And that simply is not true of entrepreneurship. It is something that you really have to take seriously and be very intentional about and strategic about. And you have to take the time to learn how to do it effectively. What do you do when one of the things that I focus on is burnout? How self-care and how do we take care of ourselves while we are up to these not usual tasks of building a business, that also includes social media and social media marketing. How do you deal with some of the challenges of entrepreneurship? I mean, you've been lucky because you've come from a family of entrepreneurs. So you've seen that grind. You know what it looks like, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But how do you deal with it for yourself?
Yeah, I think what you said there at the end is really hit the nail on the head, because I can say this in 100% honesty, I've never experienced burnout. And so on one hand, I feel very disqualified to talk about burnout. But what you were saying there at the end about being raised in this family, I think very much qualifies me to talk about burnout because, like I said, being raised in this entrepreneurial family, I got to see my mom struggle with what she has now admitted and identified as workaholism growing up. I got to see what it was like watching her stay up till 1 or 2 in the morning working and then waking up at 4:30 to go teach a fitness class and come home before my sister and I even woke up. And those years of getting very little sleep literally created holes in her brain and created serious problems that she is now dealing with and thankfully able to repair. And she's able to catch these things, when she's in her late 40s and 50s rather than, when it's too late. But so I got to see what that was like. And so I got to, by the time I was becoming an entrepreneur and becoming an adult myself, be very intentional about the boundaries that I've set. And so I've posted at least one post on my Instagram every single day since April of 2021. So over 3 years now, posting at least once every single day. Yesterday, I just did the math because I was like, dang, I really wanted to be more consistent on TikTok in 2024, but I don't think I have been. And then I went back and did the math. And I've posted 324 times in the last 275 days.
Okay.
So I posted more than once a day on TikTok this year. And that level of consistency, I didn't even realize that I was being that consistent. And it's through the boundaries that I have in place. And some of those boundaries that I have that work for me personally is no work after 5 p.m. Unless I have a live training from 5 to 6 that I just, it happens to be scheduled at that time. I do not work after 5 p.m. I close my laptop. I go do something else. I go read a book or watch Thursday Night Football, play on my Nintendo Switch or go for a walk with my wife or play with my dogs, whatever. I just do things outside of work. I also am very intentional about, hey, just because an opportunity presents itself doesn't mean I have to take it. If I would rather spend my winter snowboarding than flying around the country doing speaking events, I do that. And that's a real boundary I have. Basically from December through April, hey, I'll do a podcast interview in the afternoon. I'll have some meetings after 11 a.m. but that's it. I'm not flying to speaking events. I'm not doing more morning meetings because my mornings are going to be spent snowboarding. That's what I want to do. That fills up
Mhm.
my cup. That brings me joy. I also very, very early on in my growth, both in business and on social media, began outsourcing and hiring help and delegating the things that I suck at, the things that take me too much time, the things that are not in my area of genius. And on social media specifically, one thing that really helped was outsourcing my, you call it like community management,
Mhm.
because community is huge for me. And making sure that every single person is responded to and feels valued and seen is important to me. And while I'm not perfect at it, I want to be as close as I can to, zero inbox. I don't want to see that red number ticking up with unread messages. And so I hired someone very early on to just help me respond to direct messages and respond to comments and interact with people so that they feel valued and heard and seen. And I think that's really allowed me that freedom to not have to wake up early and respond to a bunch of DMs or
Mhm.
stay up late and, not be present with my wife because I'm busy answering messages and emails. And so I think that's really allowed me to avoid burnout. And of course, there are other things too that have helped me over the years, but those boundaries and having those in place are, I think, what have allowed me to do this for now 5+ years, maybe even 7+ years on Instagram without ever burning out, without ever feeling like I need a month off. I need to take a break because my cup is filled up outside of Instagram.
That's so important. Thank you for sharing that, and sharing it from the perspective of having seen it and witnessed it, and then making a decision to really create a life that makes sense for you and that avoids you getting to the place where, because I'm a bit of a workaholic and it feels really great when you're in it. And it also creates the need to, to create some balance and some boundaries around what you're going to do, or at least that's what it has been for me. And so I love that what you're modeling for people, and especially for people who are learning through you. You're modeling how to do this in a way that doesn't take over your entire life so that you can be fresh and so that you can do your dances that you do. And so that you can kind
Exactly.
of like give it the boundary that it needs, and also doing it so in such an amazing way. And I think that's one of the things that people admire, is that your process, your operational process, is wonderful. A person goes and they sign up and they follow you, and we feel like we're engaging with you all day, every day. And that's important. It's important for the folks that are following you. And so I'm glad that you're able to do that and have set up those systems in a way that allows you to give that while also filling yourself up, because that's really what it's all about at the end of the day. What's next for you, if you're even thinking about that?
I love so much that you said if you're even thinking about that, because I often get asked this question. And it's not something I think about a ton. Because like you said, there's that balance. And I know I have it in me to work 24/7, 365. Again, I was a college student athlete, so I know what it's like to wake up at 4 a.m. and drag yourself into the gym and work out for 2 hours and then down a protein shake and head to meetings for an hour and a half and then have a snack and then head to practice for 3 hours and then shower in 5 minutes and head to class before. Like, I know what it's like
Mm-hmm.
to work my ass off. And I know that I could do that. But I think, and I posted about this, a thread literally, I think yesterday, saying this is, and I'll probably butcher the quote now, but I said something like, don't work so hard trying to achieve some life that you think you want,
Mm.
that you end up neglecting and missing out on the life that you're currently living. And I think something I struggle with is really appreciating and celebrating how far I've come. But like when I take a step back, I'm like, hey, like I've already made it. And we have all, almost pretty much all of us have already made it. And I think it's important to recognize that you can hold both truths at the same time. You can work really hard. You can strive for more. You can continue to improve and grow. And at the same time, be content with what you have
Yeah.
and be happy with how far you've come and be proud of your accomplishment. Not sitting back and relaxing on them, but recognizing how hard you've worked and the accomplishments that do exist. And so, that question of like, what's next for me? We have projects we're working on in the business. Tomorrow, we're launching a Spanish version of our Insta Club Hub.
What?
Next week, we have like in-person marketing meetings where I'm very excited. The entire team is coming to my now hometown of Park City, Utah. So I'm going to get to like show them around, and we're going to have marketing meetings about what's
Oh,
the future of
nice.
the Insta Club Hub. And so we're thinking about those things. But for myself, I want to, my future is I'm thinking about, hey, if I'm going to be a dad one day, I want to be the best dad possible. I want to be the best husband possible to my wife. I want to be the best son to my parents. I want to be the best brother to my sister. I want to be a better friend to my friends. Sure, I'd love to make more money and whatever, and like teach more people and grow the business. But at the end of the day, I know that those things aren't going to make me happy. At the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day, those things aren't what's truly going to bring me joy. I've worked so hard to create a life where I can snowboard 70 days a year if I want to. And that's the life I'm living now. So I need to like also be proud of where I'm at. And, when I'm snowboarding in less than a month's time, when the snow starts falling, I'm going to be fully present. I'm going to be fully present on that board, and I'm going to be enjoying it. I'm not going to be thinking about my next Instagram reel.
Do you know that we have a line of Shaping Freedom wellness products? Each are beautifully crafted and designed to support you in cherishing your mind, body, emotions, and soul. Carve out a sanctuary in your life with our Luxe sustainable yoga and meditation mats, essential oil candles, and more. Embrace self-care and reflection with every item, lovingly created to enhance your daily practice of spending time on you. Elevate your wellness journey with Shaping Sanctuary Collection, because you deserve to feel balanced, nurtured, and inspired. Visit shapingsanctuary.com for more information.
That's amazing. What are your KPIs? Can you talk a little bit about what KPIs are and how you measure success in your business?
Yeah. So really, we primarily are measuring KPIs within the actual business as a whole. And we have a lot smarter people than me on our team. And that's something that I'm a huge proponent of is if you're ever the smartest person in the room, get out of that
You're
room.
not in the right
You should
room.
always try to hire people who are smarter than you, who have skill sets that you don't have. And so we have a head of marketing who is super smart when it comes to like the technical side and the numbers aspect. And my dad is the CFO of our business. And so he's great at the number side and like figuring out the actual KPIs and whether or not something makes sense. Like you can list off a bunch of numbers to him and he'll compute it Rain Man style, like in his brain. And he'll know whether something's profitable or not. It's crazy. But some things that we're looking for is we're always looking, especially because we have a membership business,
Mm-hmm.
is we want retention to always be either equal or increasing. So we want the average duration that someone is staying a member for to be increasing, right? They're staying a member for longer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been really my biggest focus for at least the first 6 months of 2024 within the business is how can we improve retention? So I've
Mm-hmm.
been reading a lot of books and studying a lot of articles and watching a lot of, podcasts and YouTube videos from experts on retention. So it's been really great to see over the last few months that number is increasing. Also, when it comes to ads and organic marketing, we have certain, thresholds that we want the average customer acquisition cost to be below a certain number. We want the average number of weekly leads generated for our business to be within a certain threshold. And so those are things that we track on a weekly basis. And literally after this podcast today, we have a meeting to kind of check in on those KPIs. But it's not so specific that it has to be down to the exact percent or down
Mm-hmm.
to the exact number. We just generally want to see improvement week over week.
Yeah, and it also gives you a barometer for measuring your effort against the result,
Mhm.
and having, and I think focusing on retention is important because it costs so much less to get someone
Yep.
to stay than it does to go out and get that, client, follower, whatever whatever your measure is. So you work with your family. I also I work with both my daughter and my sister, and working within a family is a kind of a nuanced experience in some ways. How does that work? What are the boundaries that your family What kind of boundaries do you all have for working with
Yeah,
each
I'm
other?
I'm so thankful that when I started working with my parents, they already had these boundaries in place. And I
Mm,
think that these are boundaries that they put in place for their own marital relationship. And now it's just extended to myself working in the business, and my sister doesn't really work in the business, but she does help us out a little bit because she's amazing with graphics and
mhm.
visual art and design. But family always comes first. And that's cliche and that's simple and that's something everyone's heard a million
And it's
times.
true.
But that is an absolute, like, that is commandment number one within our family when it comes to business is family comes first. So if there is something where it's like, hey, this is going to strain our family relationship, or hey, this is going to, you know, cause some sort of disconnect or divide or frustrations within our interpersonal relationships, absolutely not. Like
Mhm.
that is off the table. And so what that actually looks like on the day to day is while there might be things that we like disagree with healthfully in the business and things that we have differing opinions on, at the end of the day, we're not fighting and arguing about it. And we're not bringing our family dynamics into the workplace relationships, and vice versa. We're not bringing those things from the business into
Mhm.
our, like, dinner out that we're having. And so those things are very, very important. I will say it's difficult. It's not easy. On one hand, it's really, really nice because working with my parents, who I spent every single day with for the first 18 years of my life, I know them. I
Yeah.
know their quirks. I know their shortcomings. I know their strengths. And so we're able to kind of, and they know mine. And so we're able to kind of, uh, meet each other's needs in a way that other people couldn't, and anticipate each other's challenges when other people can't, and lean on each other in ways that other people can't. But family always comes first. And if there's any sort of challenges in the business, if it becomes too big of a source of stress or headache or too overwhelming or anxiety producing, anything like that, walk away from it. Like the
Yeah.
family relationship and that dynamic is always going to be so much more important than the business, no matter how successful the business is. So we'll just, walk away from whatever business, whatever project we're working on, if it's in the family's best interest.
Yeah. For us in my family, we say sister hat. And we have that conversation. And then we go back to whatever it is that we're talking about. But it is, I think, especially when you're working with family and when you know each other so well, it's very important to know what the priority is. And the priority
Hmm.
really has to be the relationship, because when the business is done, gone, sold, or whatever it is
Yep.
that you choose to do, your family's still there. And I think it's amazing when a family can come together to accomplish a greater goal for the family,
Hmm.
you know? So to someone who is just, and I know that you teach these classes on, tell me about Insta Club.
Yeah, yeah. So the Insta Club Hub was uh, a it was a COVID baby. It was a pandemic baby, so to speak.
So many.
I was living at home back in 2020. I was thinking I was going on spring break from college, and then I just never left spring break. And so I was living at home for about 6 months or so, and I was having these conversations, living with my mom and dad, and we were having these conversations about, hey, let's do something together. At this point, I was starting to get some traction on Instagram, and I was like, hey, I want to put out another course. By this point, I had put out 4, 5, 6 courses. So I was like, let's put out another one. But then we started thinking about it, and we were like, the thing that sucks about putting out specifically an Instagram related course is the day you put it out, it's outdated, right? Instagram's changed 15
Yeah.
times since then. There's so many things that need to be updated. And then you're faced with a dilemma as the course creator, because either you're going to, for the rest of your life, consistently be updating the course and adding new material and adding, pouring out your own expertise and knowledge for no return, right? Because they paid a one-time fee to join the course
Hmm.
and now you're just updating it for life. Or you're kind of screwing over the customer because they're paying something and they're getting a product that's outdated. They're getting material that's outdated. And so we were like, we need to create a membership. We need to create a way where people can get access to weekly updates without us having to just constantly be, um, pouring from an empty cup, so to speak, or giving people outdated information. And so that's what the Insta Club Hub is.
Mm.
Basically, we help people get from brand new on Instagram or struggling on Instagram or no growth to actually growing and monetizing their Instagram in the shortest amount of time possible. So we do that in pretty much every way you could imagine. We have like a custom content calendar where every single member gets a 30-day custom content calendar personalized for their account, their niche, their needs. They all get access to a personalized playlist of videos that are meeting them where they are, because we have people who are, day one on Instagram, they don't know what buttons to press. And then we have people with 1 million followers who are experts and they're just ready to take it to the next step. We have a personalized playlist to meet people where they are. We do monthly live trainings that are more in-depth and advanced. We have templates, and tutorials, and one-on-one coaches, profile reviews. And so we've really tried to make it the one-stop shop for growing and monetizing on Instagram. And we've helped to date, I think, 45, almost 50,000 people. And so it's really been an awesome journey over the last almost 4 years now. We're coming up on our 4-year anniversary. Just helping people grow and make money on Instagram.
Yeah, that's amazing. One of the things that I also appreciate about you, and then I'm going to ask you so you can think about this, how we can support you. One of the things that I also appreciate about you is that you seem to have built community amongst other folks who are doing the same thing that you're doing. And the first time that we reached out to you to ask you for this interview, you said that you were not available, but you threw out a few other names. And I was very impressed by that, because that's a sign of someone who is not just doing this in a vacuum by yourself, even with your own family, that you really are committed to community and recognizing your colleagues and building this in a very serious and intentional way. So I really appreciated that about you. And I just wanted to say that. And again, the fact that you are an entrepreneur first before you're a creator really comes up in the results that you have, these incredible results that you have. And so I encourage people, first of all, to follow you. And what is your handle?
Brock 11 Johnson. So there's that 1 in the middle, Brock 11 Johnson.
Yeah, that was the one I forgot. And I was going to say Brock Johnson 11. So I knew it was wrong. So I figured I'd ask you to do it.
Every couple months at Brock Johnson, or even like at Brock, will DM me and they'll be like, hey, we could sell you this username for a couple $1,000. And I'm like, A, not worth it. B, that's illegal on Instagram. Brock 11 Johnson is my handle.
Brock 11 Johnson. And Brock, how can we support you?
I appreciate that question. And I also appreciate the compliment earlier. I truly am such a fan of so many other people who do exactly what I do. And I've built these like personal relationships where I can think of off the top of my head right now, like probably a dozen or so other Instagram coaches who I have a true friendship with, who we talk about things that are not related to Instagram, and we just support each other, and we're friends, and it's really fun. And it creates so much more of a productive feeling and a rewarding feeling to show up on Instagram, because when I see them, I'm rooting them on, and I'm their cheerleader, and I'm not their competitor. I'm oftentimes literally their collaborator. And so I appreciate that. Truly the best way to support me is just following on Instagram. And if people follow on Instagram, they will see other free resources. I bet you within a week or two, they'll see some sort of post where I'm giving away 25 free hook ideas, or 50 story ideas,
Constantly.
or 100 reel ideas. And then they'll get on the email list, and then they can go through the funnel that way, learn more about the Insta Club Hub, learn more about these other offers that we have. But truly the best way to support is just following along. And I guarantee anyone who does follow will get a lot out of it themselves.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I know I do every day. I want to thank you so much for your time. I know you're busy. I know that you are very selective and careful about how you exert your time and energy. And so I really am very touched and appreciative that you would choose to spend some time with me and sharing with this audience. Is there anything, any advice, or any last thing that you'd like to share with someone?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. Really, I do appreciate it. I appreciate your energy and your words throughout. If anyone's listening today, I want to, first of all, validate for them that it's tough sledding. We're not in the Instagram 2022 environment where, in all honesty, Instagram was easier for a period of time there. There was like a year and a half where I've called it like the Instagram bubble. Everyone was going viral. Everyone was growing. Reels were new and hot and fresh. And also everyone in the world was locked in their home. So everyone was just spending more
captive
time on their
audience,
phone.
literally.
Yeah. Yeah, like if we think about just like supply demand, the demand was way higher
Yeah.
because everyone was just sitting on their couch all day, and the supply was also way lower because no one was really doing it yet, or at least not as many people as there are today. So first, I want to validate by saying it's tough sledding right now. It's not easy, but it's not impossible.
Mhm.
It's not insurmountable, the challenges we are facing right now. There are numerous hundreds of accounts that I could point to that are growing in every niche, that are having success, that are having their best launch, their best sale, their best month to date. And I know that there was a lot of value provided in today's podcast. I know if you follow me or any other amazing Instagram coach, there's plenty of amazing tips and strategies. But I really just want to encourage everyone to just get started.
Yeah.
Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And then you look back and you're like, whoa, I actually posted 324 times in the last 275 days. Whoa, I actually have 1,000 followers. Whoa, I actually have 10,000 followers. Whoa, I actually just hit 6 figures in my business. And people will ask you, how'd you do it? You just showed up and you continued to show up. You continued to put one foot in front of the other and learn from each post. I really look at each post as a data point.
Yeah.
Hey, what could I learn from this post? What did I do wrong? What did I do right? And how can I improve just a little bit before that next post? And so I know there's a lot of information and education, and it can feel very overwhelming and daunting. But at the end of the day, the person who has success is the person who just keeps showing up despite it all, despite the roller coaster. They keep going around for another ride, and they keep showing up, and they stay consistent.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was such a generous conversation, and I really, really appreciate it. And thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I really, really appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing more online. Thank you, Brock.
Thank you.
Yeah.